New York in the 1600s wasn't New York at all, it was New Amsterdam, a rough Dutch trading post clinging to the southern tip of Manhattan Island, home to barely 1,500 souls speaking 18 different languages, where beaver pelts were currency, where the local Native Americans knew the land better than any colonist, and where a wooden wall built for defense would eventually give its name to the world's most famous financial street. This was the frontier of the Dutch Empire, 3,000 miles from Amsterdam, a place where fortunes could be made in the fur trade, but where survival itself was never guaranteed. The settlement was crude, chaotic, and extraordinarily diverse, a polyglot community of Dutch, English, French, German, Swedish, African, and Jewish settlers, trying to carve out lives in a landscape that had belonged to the Lenape people for thousands of years. Today, advanced AI technology allows us to transform period maps, sketches, and archaeological evidence into photorealistic recreations, bringing this lost world back to life. Join me as we step into the New Amsterdam our ancestors once knew, a tiny colonial outpost that would eventually become the greatest city on Earth. The harbor where Manhattan begins. Stand at the southern tip of Manhattan in 1660, and you're looking at New Amsterdam, a settlement of about 1,500 people clustered around the protected harbor where the Hudson and East Rivers meet the Atlantic. The location is perfect for trade. A deep, natural harbor, rivers penetrating deep into the interior, and the island itself offering protection. But this isn't the gleaming metropolis of later centuries. It's a frontier town of wooden houses, dirt streets, and Fort Amsterdam, a massive stone fort squatting near the water's edge. The fort's walls are thick, its cannons point toward the harbor, ready to defend against English, French, or Spanish attack. Inside are the colony's administrative offices, the Dutch Reformed Church, and the governor's residence. Look at the harbor itself. Ships from the Dutch West India Company arrive with supplies and manufactured goods. They leave laden with beaver pelts, the colony's primary export, and the whole reason New Amsterdam exists. The beaver fur trade is incredibly lucrative. European hat makers pay premium prices for North American beaver pelts. Watch the ships unload. Among the cargo are enslaved Africans, brought by the Dutch West India Company to labor in the colony. By 1660, about 20% of New Amsterdam's population is of African descent. Some enslaved, some half-free with limited rights, a few fully free. They work on company farms, build fortifications, load ships, providing essential labor that makes the colony function. The waterfront is crude but busy. Wharves stretch into the water, mostly simple wooden structures. Small boats ferry goods and people. The beach is littered with barrels, construction materials, ship's equipment. The smell is salt water, tar, fish, and the ever-present stench of waste that flows into the harbor, untreated. The Lenape, the Native Americans who've inhabited this region for millennia, still come to trade. They bring furs, corn, and knowledge of the land. The Dutch bring metal tools, cloth, glass beads, and alcohol. The relationship is complex, sometimes cooperative, often exploitative, occasionally violent. The Lenape know they're being displaced, their numbers decimated by European diseases. The most famous transaction supposedly happened in 1626 when Peter Minuit purchased Manhattan for goods worth 60 guilders, often stated as $24. But this is more myth than reality. The Lenape didn't have European concepts of land ownership. They likely thought they were granting hunting rights, not permanently ceding their homeland. The streets, chaos and diversity. Walk up from the harbor into the settlement, and you're navigating streets that are barely streets at all. Dirt paths, muddy in rain, dusty when dry, churned by pigs, cattle, and horses that roam freely. There's no urban planning. Houses are built wherever space exists. The buildings are distinctively Dutch, step-gabled houses with brick or wood construction, steeply pitched roofs. But many are crude, hastily built structures that barely keep out winter cold. Chimneys smoke constantly. Fire is a constant threat in this wooden town. The diversity is stunning for such a small settlement. In 1643, a French Jesuit priest noted that 18 languages were spoken in New Amsterdam. You'll hear Dutch, English, French, German, Swedish, various African languages, Hebrew, and indigenous languages. Settlers have come from across Europe and Africa, creating a polyglot community that's chaotic but remarkably tolerant by 17th century standards. Religious diversity mirrors linguistic variety. The Dutch Reformed Church is official, but Lutherans, Jews, Quakers, and Catholics all live here, though not always with equal rights. In 1654, when 23 Jewish refugees from Brazil arrived, Governor Peter Stuyvesant wanted to expel them, but the Dutch West India Company overruled him. Religious tolerance isn't based on principle, but practical economics. The colony needs settlers. Walk past the houses and you'll notice taverns everywhere. New Amsterdam has a shocking number of drinking establishments, perhaps one for every 50 residents. Beer and spirits flow freely. Taverns serve as social centers, meeting places, and sites of business negotiation. The town's northern boundary is marked by a wooden wall, built in 1653 to protect against English invasion and Native American attack. It runs roughly east-west at what's now Wall Street. The wall is more psychological than practical, but it defines the limits of Dutch control. Beyond the wall lies farmland worked by both free farmers and enslaved laborers. The Dutch West India Company owns substantial lands. Individual colonists have established boweries, farms carved from forest and marsh. The most famous will give its name to a future neighborhood, the Bowery. The transformation, from outpost to metropolis. In 1660, New Amsterdam is a crude frontier settlement that might not survive. By 1700, now as New York, it's a thriving port of over 5,000 people. By 1800, it's approaching 60,000. By 1900, it's over 3 million. The transformation is one of history's most dramatic urban stories. What made this possible? Location primarily, the harbor is among the world's finest, and the Hudson provides access deep into the continent. But also the foundation laid in the Dutch period: religious tolerance, ethnic diversity, commercial focus, and pragmatic flexibility. These characteristics established in the 1600s become defining features of New York City. Walk Manhattan today and you'll still see echoes of New Amsterdam. Wall Street follows the wooden wall's path. Broadway follows an old Lenape trail the Dutch called Heere Straat. The Bowery preserves the Dutch word for farm. Pearl Street remembers oyster shells that line the shore. The ethnic diversity, commercial energy, and slightly chaotic character all trace back to the frontier settlement. But much is lost. The Lenape presence is reduced to place names. The Dutch language disappeared by the early 1800s. The original buildings are all gone, replaced multiple times. Even the geography changed. Landfill extended the island's shoreline. Marshes were drained. Hills were leveled. The legacy. Understanding New Amsterdam helps us grasp New York's DNA. This was never a planned, orderly settlement. It was chaotic from the start. Diverse, commercial, slightly disreputable, focused on making money rather than creating a perfect society. Those characteristics persist today. The city's diversity, often celebrated as a modern achievement, has roots in New Amsterdam's 18 languages. The commercial focus comes from the Dutch trading post mentality. The famous New York attitude reflects frontier pragmatism refined over centuries. But we must also remember the costs. The Lenape displaced and destroyed, the enslaved Africans whose labor built colonial prosperity, the environmental transformation that eliminated ancient ecosystems. New York's greatness rests on foundations that include both remarkable achievements and terrible injustices. This was New Amsterdam in the 1600s, a tiny Dutch outpost that became the greatest city on Earth. If you enjoyed this step back in time, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss where we're going next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the past.